20th and 21st centuries Islamic studies a globalized perspective. Through this speech, I aim to reveal, to show, and to demonstrate the development, change, and transformations of the study of Sharia or Islamic legal study or Islamic law within Islamic studies. I will begin first my talk with the introductions, and then I will go to the content of my speech by showing you the development, change, and transformations of Islamic legal studies within Islamic legal studies within Islamic studies. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to speak this afternoon in Palangkaraya time, basically based on my writing in this book, just has been launched like 2 months ago. And the part of I'm going to present is the introductions from the first chapter in this book. So I would first start by presenting you about the historical development of the inventions of Oriental studies or Islamic studies in the West. Islamic studies in the West as a field of study or even academic discipline is generally traced back to around 2 centuries ago in the colonial or quasi-colonial context following the Enlightenment dynamic of knowledge development. The study of Islam has always been linked to the geopolitical and social concerns specific to the societies that have devoted themselves to it in the 19th century, how to govern Muslims in the colonies. In the 60s and 70s, decolonizations in Asia and Africa spawned a new generation of third world researchers challenging the ethnocentric European approach in the new postmodern or post-structuralist current carried by the field of cultural studies, calling for the overcoming of narrow philological approaches, but this affected Islamic studies only marginally established Islamologists remaining on the defensive. It was against this backdrop of that the field was shaken in the 1978 by Edward Said. You can see here in my diaporama. Edward Said, an American of Palestinian origin and professor of English and comparative literature, with the publications of his work, Orientalism's Western Conceptions of the Orient, or the Orient Created by the West. Embracing a Foucauldian genealogical perspective and the Gramscian's concept of cultural hegemony, Said brought to light the historical and ideological conditions and social basis of knowledge productions within a disciplines which, if you follow him, has contributed to forging Western hegemonic representations based on ethnocentrisms and stereotypes of Islams and Muslims. As Bernard Cooley, a professor here at Catholic University of Louvain in Belgium, writes, I quote, "Oriental studies must now contribute through the study of history and sources to a proper understanding of today's world. In this globalized world, Oriental studies or Islamic studies cannot be satisfied with knowledge for knowledge's sake, but must place knowledge at the surface of clearly stated objective to reveal the link between the past and the present and to weave the bond between peoples." So our study, our Islamic legal studies, our Sharia studies, as you are doing now, as you are being a lecturer or students for master and PhD students or researchers in your university, is devoted to Islamic legal study through the prisms of history and society in line with current developments in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest you to read more books in order to shorten my introductions, and I will show you some books that are very good to see the development of Islamic studies in the West in the 20th and 21st centuries. And here are some books. This book, for instance, Mapping Islamic Studies, Azim Namji. And also this book, edited by Leon Buskant and Annemer van Sanwyk. And also this book. And also this book. Now, so those books are really good to know the development and change and transformations of Islamic studies. Now, I would like to focus on the transformation, change, and development of Islamic legal studies, of Sharia studies, because all of we come from the faculty of Sharia, faculty of law. So it's really important in our this conference to see these transformations. So by way of illustrations, let's take the Islamic law and more specifically through the study of fatwa in the Muslim countries. The study of Islamic law has been particularly dynamic over the last 30 years. The creations of journal Islamic Law and Society, just for your information, Journal of Islamic Law and Society, the journal is published by Brill, now become the first journal in Islamic law, was undoubtedly one of the main catalysts. This has resulted in the publications of dozens of books and articles dealing with law in general in the context of pre-modern societies, with the underlying idea that Islam was common denominator of these societies and their law. Here, the assumption of that this share of law has been progressively restricted. For a long time, Islamic law has been considered closed, fixed since the 10th century. Most scholars, however, from the founding fathers of Orientalism to contemporary academics, assert that it is through the phenomenon of the fatwa, non-binding legal opinion, and only through this that we can observe change, continuity, development, and transformations of this law, Islamic law. Thus, according to Joseph Schacht, the principles of change and the development of these principles in Islamic law owe much to the activities of those who issue the fatwa, mufti, as you know. The mufti show us the urgent questions that arose in certain place and at certain time. Carlson has gone further, pointing out that the Islamic law developed in civil transactions and also to some extent in public law. The main agents of this change were the mufti, who succeeded in synthesizing doctrine and practice. In other words, the mufti were able to apply and implement the doctrine of Islamic law to solve practical problems that arose in the ordinary everyday life of Muslims. This means that Islamic law is de facto in this term the law of fatwa. This being the case, while scholars of the first generations of Orientalists asserted that Islamic law had changed and evolved through the fatwa, they did not conduct fundamental research to demonstrate this change and transformation. It was later researchers, the second and third generations of Orientalists, who helped to demonstrate beyond the element of continuity, this change and transformations. Some of Islamologists who work on the fatwa demonstrating of the continuity, change, development, and transformation of Islamic law are worth mentioning, such as the case of Babar Johansen. Babar Johansen was my professor when I studied at the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales in Paris, France, but also he was my examiner for my master. So Babar Johansen, in his research on taxations and land leasing during the Mamluk and Ottoman periods, which is based on Syrian and Egyptian fatwas issued between the 16th to the 19th centuries, whose collections, which constitute the locus of doctrinal change, must be examined carefully and meticulously at every level. Matan, mutun, sharh, shuruh, and fatawa. The Mufti's new legal opinions on taxations and land leasing were presented to the Qadi and Fuqaha, who accepted them if they considered correct. Subsequently, this new method of legal reasoning influenced the commentaries, shuruh, of the Hanafi school's fix of books, with the new fatwas being incorporated into the textbooks within it. Wa'il Bihallak is the most active scholar in this field, who has demonstrated over the last 20 years how Islamic law has changed, developed, and transformed within the framework of the legal genre of the fatwa, which, I quote, has been the main responsible for the growth and change of legal doctrine in the school. The current perceptions of Islamic law as jurist law must now be deepened as Mufti's law, end quote. In his book, Authority, Continuity, and Change in Islamic Law, particularly in chapter 6, which deals with Mufti based on the collections and compilations of fatwas, Hallak shows that they are special agents of change in Islamic law. Ultimately, this change occurred over the centuries and eventually entered modern legislation, as he showed in his book Sharia, Theory, Practice, and Transformations. Similarly, Haim Gerber has studied change in Islamic law through fatwa issued in 16th and 19th centuries. His research focused on 3 muftis, 2 Palestinians living in Damascus, Khairuddin al-Ramli and Muhammad Amin ibn Abidin, and 1 Turk, Abu Saud al-Imadi. By carefully reading the fatwas of these 3 muftis, he found that the structure of methodology of Islamic law and its relationship with the state suggests flexibility and openness through the concept of istihsan, darura, masrahah, and urf. Based on these Islamic legal concepts, the muftis used their intellectual capacity in their interpretative efforts, ijtihad, to propose solutions for their times. For his part, David Aspower has studied the fatwas of Al-Wansharisi exclusively in the fatwa collections of the Malikite school over 4 centuries, from the 11th to the 15th centuries, in the 13 collections volume of Kitab al-Mi'yar. He focused on 6 issues: paternity, fornications, water rights, family endowments, slandering the prophets, and disinheriting children. Power shows that the work of the muftis was based on the development of reasoned arguments to answer the questions put to them, with the fatwas illustrating the evolutions of Islamic law in its ability to adapt its situations. As for Judith Tucker, she studied the fatwas of 3 muftis, Khairuddin al-Ramli, Hamid ibn Ali al-Imadi, and Abdul Fattah al-Tamimi of the Hanafi school. Based on a careful reading of their fatwas, she focused on the relationship between man and woman in society. Their fatwas influenced the role of Muslim women in society. Tucker shows that 3 muftis openly used ijtihad in favor of women, where arguments were based not only on the Quran, Hadith, and the principles of Hanafi school, but also on custom, uruf. She shows that Islamic law through a fatwa reveals its fluidity and flexibility. Finally, Eti Tarem has studied Mahdi al-Wazani 11 volumes compilations of Malikite's fatwa. She shows that Islamic law through fatwa can face up to the challenges of modernity and emphasizes that Islamic law through fatwas has been able to adapt and change in response to new socio-political circumstances. Muftis practice legal reasoning based on Islamic legal doctrines to respond to the concrete problems facing people in given area. Another outstanding work is his joint article with David S. Power, devoted into the analysis of continuity and change through fatwa on inheritance by bequest and endowments, based on the book of Al-Mi'yar by Al-Wansharisi and Al-Mi'yar by Al-Wazani of the Malikite school in North Africa, mainly Morocco, over nearly 1,000 years. Ladies and gentlemen, this brief survey of studies on fatwas of the pre-modern period shows through various axes that they are of great interest for the study of history and society, and that Islamic law shows flexibility in the face of new circumstances. It also shows that two main trends can be distinguished, which can be characterized as, on the one hand, law as a practice to be studied in and for itself, and in the other, law as a source for writing cultural and social history. The two tendencies are not necessarily opposed, but they do derive from quite different and potentially contradictory presuppositions and objectives. Studies of the law itself are based on a specific material and assumptions. Generally speaking, they regard the law as a self-evident object, which is not without creating a number of conceptual ambiguities between, for example, legal doctrine and judicial practice, local custom and customary law, learned traditions and contingent practices. The type of material on which they are based is more doctrinal than judicial, for reasons mainly linked to the document available. Ladies and gentlemen, if we take Brinkley-Missick's distinctions between libraries and archives, I would encourage everybody to read this book. Very, very good for the conceptual and theoretical frameworks, because Brinkley-Missick distinguished two types of documents in fiqh, in Islamic law, what he termed by libraries and archives, which means between scholarly legal literature. So libraries, it's kitabul fiqh, kitab fiqh, scholarly legal literature, fiqh books, and degree literature of legal practice, such as sijillat, which means the tribunal decisions. So between libraries, the fiqh books, and archives, the tribunal decisions by hakim or by qadi. It is clear that it is difficult to establish connections between law in book and law in actions. This relationship is certain, but in most cases difficult to document. The abundance of text in the library, kitab fiqh, and the relative scarcity, or particularly in early times, of text in the archive, the tribunal decisions or the qadi's decisions or the hakim decisions, have naturally resulted in particular emphasis on learned legal doctrine. In the last 10 years, however, there has been a marked change in this trend, with an increasing number of studies of local archive, such as Jerusalem's Haram al-Sharif, which are demonstrating the effectiveness of judicial practice based on legal doctrine or fiqh. These studies have the particularity of taking the law seriously, which is considering it or law as such, while studying law in its applied dimensions. For instance, the work of Christian Muller. Christian Muller is my colleague in France, in ICIN, en École de Haute Études en Sciences Sociales. Recht und historische Entwicklung der Sharia in Islam. Really, really good book. In line with this new trend in Islamic legal studies, for the context of Southeast Asian countries, I think I'm the pioneering researcher who take the pre-modern Qadi decisions taken it seriously. I have published 2 articles about the Qadi of Banten in the 18th century. This is the oldest existing pre-modern archive from Southeast Asian country, especially from our country, from Indonesia, and it comes from the Sultanate of Banten in Banten. This is not the case with studies that use law as a source of culture and social history. These are not interested in law as such, but use it as documentary resources to address, for example, the organizations of land in the Ottoman Empire, the status of women in Palestine, marginality in Cairo, and or urban practices in Tunis, in Tunisia. This type of study began with the discovery of important Ottoman judicial collections, the Sijillat, tribunal decisions or Qadi's decisions, which correspond to the registry archive listing the act and decisions of a given jurisdictions. One particularity of these bureaucratic documents is their seemingly systematic reporting of judicial activity. Another is their laconic form. It is easy to understand why historians would have been interested in such documents. We can also imagine the temptations to turn them into a raw, direct, and immediate source. The price is high, however, because such documents were not drawn up with the scientific aim of producing a social snapshot, but with the practical aim of producing the archive needed to run the judicial administrations. To take these documents literally is to lose their phenomenological, institutional, and praxeological depth. It also makes us forget they are produced for all practical legal purposes, which means that they are based on categories and procedures that are not intended to reflect social reality, but to produce legal decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, in modern societies, research has focused, when I said modern societies in the 21st century, research has focused more on the role of Islam in law, in approach whose Orientalist dimensions must be recognized. Legal studies have focused on the dual dynamics, the Islamizations and re-Islamizations of law, as well as the nature of residual Islamic law, rather than on the questions of law in so-called Muslim societies in general, outside its Islamic dimension. The result of these obsessions has been to reduce these societies and their laws, which have been nationals since at least independence, to their Islamic determinations alone, ignoring the constructions of legal iceberg at both legislative and litigations levels, the submerged part of which is totally autonomous from these determinations. The result is partial and biased view of the law, sometimes complemented by a truncated focus of human rights. So despite these harmful distortions, work on law in Muslim societies has produced interesting results in 2 areas. On the one hand, and for a long time now, they have focused on family domain, often referred to as personal status, because in a way that needs to be qualified. It is the law of denominations to which people belong that applies, and not the national law common to all citizens of the same state. This sector of law has remained marked by reference to Islamic normativity, even if contrary to what is often asserted. It is far from a continuity with pre-modern legal doctrine and judicial practice. The study of this law has shown its evolutions, which accompany rather than determine family relations in the Muslim context, in which reflect rather than nuance the social and political upheavals of states with predominantly Muslim population, as we show in our edited volume that I co-edited with my colleagues Erin Stiles from Nevada University in our recent book, Islamic Divorce in the 21st Century, A Global Perspective, published by Rutgers University Press. This work on law in Muslim societies has also focused on the legal translations of what has been often called the re-Islamizations of Muslim societies. This dynamic, which can approach from below as phenomenon of bigotizations of the modern world, has also met itself felt from above in games of an upmanship between the powers that be and their opponents, particularly since the early of 70s. The inclusions of reference to fiqh or Sharia law in constitutional texts has been the most classic expressions of this. The adoptions of so-called Islamic codes, particularly penal codes, is another. This legal re-Islamizations from above has a double characteristics. This display of an Islamic legal heritage and a break with the traditional ways of formulating and exercising this same normativity. As in the case of pre-modern law, there's a growing body of work on the law in Muslim countries, independently but not exclusively of Islamic determinations. This work can be concerned with the law of the books as well, law in actions. Here, for instance, the books authored by my colleague Nathalie Bernard-Mourgeron, The Roi Contemporain des Pays Arabes. The latest and the newest book, very good to know the law in the Muslim Arabic countries. Often, it is the relationship between these two perspectives that is the focus of truly innovative work, as it has been shown in this book by my mentor and colleague Baudouin Dupré, Positive Law from the Muslim World. By coupling of the study of legal productions, both legislative and judicial, with that of legal practice, which means the ordinary life of law as reflected in the ethnography of its multiple productions and applications sites, this work succeeds in breaking out of the confines of Islamocentrism and contribute to the human and social sciences in all their diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my speech to say that is in these presentations, I show this change, legal and transformations of the Sharia studies or the Islamic legal studies in the 20th and 21st centuries, which first focused on the fiqh book and then moved to the sijallat or legal decisions and ended up by the studying on both libraries, to use the terms from Brinkley Messick, the libraries and the archive, to study law in the book and law in the actions in the Muslim societies. Thank you so much for listening and for your time. And I look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Professor Riza, for your amazing and comprehensive presentations. Before I'm asking for the questions for the audience, let me a little bit give an explanation in Bahasa. Maybe most of the audience also not really familiar with English. So, jadi tadi Profesor Riza sudah memberikan sedikit dan sangat kompleks ya terkait dengan transformasi studi hukum Islam syariah dari era klasik hingga kontemporer hari ini, kita bisa melihat berapa banyak jumlah literatur yang sangat kaya yang bisa kita lihat yang mungkin sangat susah diakses oleh, nah khususnya ya mahasiswa Indonesia jika tidak berbayar seperti itu. Dan juga kita bisa melihat ya seperti Prof. Riza katakan bahwa pada akhirnya kita akan melihat hukum Islam pada awalnya hanya dikaji dan fokus pada hal-hal yang berbau sangat teks, di mana hanya berirama di dalam fikih, kemudian sudah mulai mengalami penyadaran di era di mana kita mulai mengenal tradisi pada hukum positif dan tradisi legal. Nah, selain itu beliau juga menyebutkan terkait dengan law in tax and law in action, di mana beliau menekankan bahwa hari ini terlebih ketika beliau memperkenalkan Profesor Edward tentang post-orientalis Islam, di mana Indonesia sudah tercerahkan, Islam sudah tercerahkan, dan kita mulai menyadari bahwa hukum Islam dan tradisi Islam dan legal Islam itu tidak lagi harus berkutat dalam tataran teks dan teori, tetapi juga harus menjawab tantangan global yang hari ini semakin mempertanyakan bagaimana konsep dan hukum Islam itu pada saat terjadi berbagai kompleksitas hukum di dunia. Saya pikir I will continue with the discussion sessions. I encourage participants to raise your hand with the raise hand features in your Zoom. If you are not really able to speak with English, please you can using Bahasa too, because Professor Riza also accept that.
Of course.
Okay.
Bu Nur Hidayah,
Yeah.
can you just like time 1 or 2 minutes just to explain in our national language, Bahasa Indonesia?
Of
So
course,
the
Professor,
audience,
of course. Thank you very much.
my 30 minutes of presentations. Bapak Ibu mahasiswa-mahasiswi yang baik, apa yang saya jelaskan tadi adalah untuk menunjukkan perkembangan kajian hukum Islam, karena kita di Fakultas Syariah, Fakultas Hukum, dan tema konferensi antar bangsa ini mengenai syariah dengan berbagai dimensinya, halal, hukum keluarga, dan lain sebagainya. Saya menunjukkan perkembangan kajian Islam di dunia barat yang luar biasa, yang awalnya tadi sudah dijelaskan oleh Bu Nur Hidayah, fokus pada kajian teks fikih, kemudian berkembang bahwa untuk menunjukkan bahwa hukum Islam itu mengalami perkembangan yang luar biasa, dan perkembangan luar biasa ini hanya bisa dilihat melalui kajian fatwa. Tadi saya sudah menunjukkan berbagai kajian fatwa yang dilakukan oleh para peneliti barat dari generasi pertama hingga generasi terakhir. Kemudian pada kajian selanjutnya, pada kajian teks yaitu fatwa, lalu pindah kepada kajian kedua yaitu kajian keputusan-keputusan para hakim atau qadi, terutama pada masa Turki Ottoman. Nah, di Indonesia ini kan sekarang fokusnya pada kajian keputusan hakim, tapi pada abad sekarang, abad 21 setelah tahun 70-an ke sini ya, di pengadilan agama, mahkamah syariah, pengadilan syariah. Tapi kita tidak mengkaji keputusan-keputusan sebelum penjajahan misalnya. Memang jarang ya. Boleh dikatakan dalam kajian hukum Islam di dunia, saya orang pertama dari Asia Tenggara yang menyajikan keputusan-keputusan qadi, dan itu yang paling tua dari Asia Tenggara, dan itu berasal dari pengadilan dari Kesultanan Banten, yaitu Qadi Kiai Pekih Najamuddin. Lalu pada periode ketiga, jadi fokus pada melihat fatwa yang ada pada kitab-kitab fikih, kemudian keputusan-keputusan qadi. Nah, para peneliti hukum Islam ini melihat bagaimana ini ada kitab-kitab fikih, ada keputusan-keputusan. Nah, lalu kemudian saya jelaskan tadi ada konsep terbaru atau pendekatan teoritis yang sangat bagus, dan saya sangat menyarankan Bapak Ibu semua membaca bukunya Brinkley Messick Syariah Script. Ini sangat bagus sekali untuk landasan konseptual, landasan teoritis. Dia mengatakan bahwa dalam hukum Islam itu ada dua, library dengan archive, kepustakaan dan arsip. Apa yang dimaksud dengan kepustakaan itu adalah kitab-kitab fikih, pustaka, kemudian arsip itu adalah keputusan-keputusan pengadilan atau hakim atau qadi. Nah, sekarang kajian hukum Islam itu harus mengkaji keduanya, hukum di dalam kitab fikih dan hukum di dalam keputusan-keputusan pengadilan qadi atau hakim, untuk melihat kebersinambungan, kemudian melihat betul-betul teks-teks ini sebagai kajian hukum, bukan hanya sebagai sumber sejarah dan sejarah hukum, sejarah sosial, sejarah masyarakat, sejarah politik, tapi benar-benar sebagai sumber sejarah hukum. Nah, sekarang sudah banyak, antara lain dilakukan oleh kolega senior saya yang bernama Profesor Christian Muller, kemudian juga mentor saya, kolega saya yaitu Profesor Budang Dukha, di mana saya terlibat banyak sekali penelitian-penelitian bersama mereka dan sudah menerbitkannya, dan Bapak Ibu bisa membacanya pada artikel-artikel kami dan bisa diunduh secara percuma gratis melalui Academia Edu atau ResearchGate tentang paternal affiliations, isbat nikah, isbat nasab, dan sekarang kami sedang banyak melakukan penelitian lainnya. Demikian, mudah-mudahan Bu Nur bisa semakin jelas untuk para dosen dan Bapak Ibu mahasiswa-mahasiswa sekalian bahwa perkembangan kajian hukum Islam di Indonesia itu harus banyak sekali to catch up ya, to catch up kajian hukum Islam di dunia barat begitu cepat. Kadang saya melihat kajian hukum Islam kita di Indonesia itu cukup telat dan lambat untuk apa ya, mengejar ketertinggalan teman-teman di dunia barat. Mudah-mudahan dengan pemaparan saya ini membuka wawasan Bapak Ibu semua, dan buku-buku yang saya tadi paparkan bisa diunduh secara percuma gratis. Bapak Ibu sudah tahu, saya tidak bisa sebutkannya melalui situs-situs penyedia buku gratis. Tentu ini sebagai orang hukum ini tidak sah dan melawan hukum, makanya sebenarnya saya tidak mau menyarankan. Tapi Bapak Ibu sudah tahu semua bagaimana mendapatkan buku-buku bentuk PDF secara gratis. Demikian Bu Nur Hidayah, and we look forward to the comments and reactions and also questions. Definitely you can ask your questions in both English atau bahasa Indonesia. تتكلم اللغة العربية الفصيحة ما في مشكلة.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Riza. It was very amazing opportunity for audience to raising your hand, asking your questions. Please, if you are not really confident with English, you can just asking with Bahasa. Please. Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya langsung kepada Prof. Riza, dipersilahkan, mumpung ini adalah harta karun ya, harta karun yang sangat berharga. Beliau tidak hanya, oke silahkan, ada Hanif Munadi, please.
Silakan.
Thank you for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum, Prof. My name is Hanif. We know that Orientalists, when they see Islam, maybe this is my thought, only my thoughts. We know Orientalists divided into two groups. There is Orientalists that want to make some negatives of Islam, want to make negative point, like Joseph Sach, like what you see, and then Ignas maybe when see hadith, and then some Orientalists that have positive points of Islam. What do you think about it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bu Nurida, can I answer the questions directly, or should we collect all the questions and then I answer at once?
Okay, I just collect the question and then you can answer because we have a very limited time. Okay. So
Okay.
Muhammad Rifki, you raise your hand, please.
Inggih, izin Bu. Mohon maaf saya nggak bisa buka kamera karena kamera laptop saya rusak.
Silakan Pak.
Inggih, terima kasih Prof. Perkenalkan saya Rifki dari UIN Antasari Banjarmasin. Ini pertanyaannya sedikit personal Prof. Mohon maaf nggih. Saya kebetulan baru lulus program LPDP S3 luar negeri Prof. Nah, kira-kira apakah ada kesempatan untuk ikut jenengan di sana Prof untuk belajar langsung bersama jenengan di situ? Mungkin itu Prof. Mohon maaf kalau pertanyaannya agak personal. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Nur, maybe I can answer directly to
Okay.
in order to not waste our time. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, thank you so much for these nice questions from Hanif. Hanif, ladies and gentlemen, students, lecturers, that's true. There are some, Orientalists, let's say, they have a hidden agenda. But however, this is really important. Islamic studies in the West, both in Europe or in the US, change, develop, and transform over time, Mas Hanif. Okay? The first generations of Orientalists like Joseph Schacht, Ignaz Goldziher, and Senokuru Groningen were perhaps and might been identified as Orientalists who have had a hidden agenda. But the question is that, did they do it intentionally or unintentionally? I don't think that they did it intentionally, but they were influenced by their approaches, by the development of knowledge in the European countries, and that is Jewish and biblical studies. So the first generations of Orientalists had been influenced by the approaches of biblical and Jewish and biblical studies. So that's why the scholars afterward, let's say, quote unquote, discovered that these first Orientalists had like hidden agenda, but I think they did not do it purposefully. That not in their purpose. This is the first, Mas Hanif, ladies and gentlemen. And second, the second, third, and until today, the new generations, the approaches, the regards have changed, really changed from the 90s, and they have like a positive regard to Islam and to Muslim societies. So I would like to emphasize that Orientalism has changed, and I can talk over 1 hour, 2 or 3 hours, because I have course about this, and maybe next time your university, and maybe if I also have time, maybe can invite me again, and then I would like to deliver the transformations and the development and the change of Islamic studies within Orientalist studies. This is the first. We have no time. And second, Orientalists have very negative connotations. Very negative connotations. Now, I would like to emphasize again, insist, the word Orientalism, Orientalists, are not used anymore. For instance, here at UC Louvain, at Hampton University, even at Oxford University, they changed the name Department of Faculty of Orientalist Studies to Islamic Studies, to Arabic Studies, to Middle and Near Eastern Studies, and so on and so forth. So let's to be brief. The Indonesian regards, and if you want to include all Southeast Asian countries, including Malaysia, Malaysia is more, I'm sorry to say, backward in this regard. In Indonesia, we regard Orientalism as Orientalism stated in the early of 20th century, that Orientalism is very bad. They want to give a negative image of Islam. They want to destroy Islam from the inside. No, that is not true at all. Now it's not true at all. So many Muslim scholars now are teaching and doing research in the majority European and US universities, including me. I'm teaching here at UC Louvain, I'm teaching at Kent University. You know, imagine it was not possible like 50 years ago. Now, so many Muslim scholars teaching at European universities, not only Muslim, non-Muslim scholars with this positive regard. So they now want to understand really about Islam and Muslims from the inside perspective, from the internal perspective. So I will stop here because this is really interesting topic, and we can discuss hours and hours, and maybe later on when the university would organize the current trends of Islamic studies in the world. Pertanyaan kedua, saya pikir ini pribadi, tapi tidak apa-apa, ini dibuka untuk semua teman-teman juga. Jadi buat teman-teman dosen, bagi yang sedang S2, sedang S3, atau Bapak Ibu dosen yang mau melakukan penelitian S3, silahkan. Sekarang universitas-universitas di Eropa dan di Amerika sangat terbuka untuk seluruh orang dari seluruh dunia, termasuk Indonesia. Dan Indonesia tidak memiliki persoalan keuangan, silahkan. Nah, persoalannya sekarang adalah menemukan profesor. Untuk langsung belajar di bawah bimbingan saya mohon maaf Pak Muhammad, status saya bukan dosen tetap. Jadi saya visiting professor. Sebagai dosen tamu, kita tidak bisa menerima mahasiswa-mahasiswi. Saya menyarankan untuk mahasiswa-mahasiswa S2, S3, caranya mudah. Sekarang sudah ada Google, internet, silakan cari misalnya Professor in Islamic Law, dan itu banyak sekali dan yang mau menerima. Saya hanya memberikan beberapa kata, misalnya di Belgia ada Kent University, di sana ada Department of Islamic and Arabic Studies. Di KU Leuven itu ada beberapa teman saya di sana. Silakan tulis, ajukan sendiri, dan usahakan mereka mengambil Anda sebagai mahasiswa-mahasiswi itu karena kekuatan Anda. Ya, bukan karena si fulan A, B, C, D. Itu lebih membanggakan, lebih menyenangkan, membahagiakan hati Anda semua. Jadi saran saya, silakan. Di Belgia paling tidak ada Kent University, KU11, dan di UC Louvain. Di Prancis lebih banyak lagi. Lebih banyak lagi. Ya. Di EHES, sekolah saya dulu, itu ada namanya ISIM. Silakan, bisa ke sana juga. Sekali lagi berbicara mengenai kesempatan belajar di Eropa, ini butuh waktu lagi ya Bu Nur, mudah-mudahan nanti IAIN Palangkaraya mungkin bisa mengadakan satu sesi khusus ya, bagaimana belajar ke Eropa, karena ini butuh kiat-kiat khusus dan tidak bisa dijawab dalam waktu 5-10 menit, mungkin pada kesempatan yang lain. Tapi saya menyarankan jangan takut, ajukan, tapi persiapkan dengan sangat bagus bahasa Inggris. Pastinya syukur-syukur bisa bahasa negara yang Anda tuju. Kalau Jerman-Jerman, Belanda-Belanda, Prancis-Prancis. Saya yakin teman-teman di IAIN Palangkaraya, khususnya, dan teman-teman yang sedang menyaksikan ini, Anda adalah orang-orang hebat. Dan saya yakin suatu saat pasti akan menginjakkan kaki Anda di Eropa dan Amerika. Amin.
Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you so much, Profesor Riza. Kita yakin
Makasih, Prof.
kesempatan untuk melakukan visiting research juga ya dari IAIN langsung ke tempat Prof Riza. Baik, this is just the last opportunity to Hanif or even Muhammad Rifki to give in their feedback. If you would like to do that, just a few words, okay?
Baik,
Cukup, Ibu.
terima
Makasih.
kasih. Terima kasih Ibu. Ya, itu yang saya setuju dengan Profesor bahwa memang ada konotasi negatif pada saat kita melakukan studi tentang orientalisme. Dan hal ini terjadi kepada saya. Jujur, pada saat saya ingin meneliti tentang orientalisme, nah itu entah kenapa dibilang, ini nggak Islami, gitu. Ini nggak Islami, oh ini bukan Islam kayak gini nih. Nah, itu yang mindset negatif ini yang saya setuju dengan Profesor bahwa ada perubahan di sini, dan itu penting untuk disampaikan menurut saya. Karena lumayan ya, sebagian besar untuk IAIN, UIN, itu kayaknya PTKIN seperti itu masih agak apa ya, agak takut untuk menyentuh studi orientalism. Terima kasih.
Might we still have one opportunity, Professor? Are you don't mind with this kind of the questions?
Ya, saya yakin teman-teman kita, baik mahasiswa maupun dosen peneliti, banyak pertanyaan, tapi mungkin agak sungkan. Ya. Saya ingin menutup pemaparan saya untuk mengatakan bahwa Bapak Ibu, teman-teman sekalian, penelitian, pengajaran, penerbitan mengenai kajian keislaman dalam semua bidang, dan khususnya di bidang kita, berkembang begitu pesat. Saya mengundang Bapak Ibu teman-teman sekalian untuk terus memperbaharui informasi dan pengetahuannya melalui jurnal-jurnal terbaik di bidang kita dan melalui penerbit-penerbit terbaik, sehingga kita mengetahui perkembangan itu. Sebab kalau tidak, nanti kita tidak bisa tidak usah menyamai, tapi paling tidak kita tahu perkembangan yang terjadi. Karena itu pertanyaan tadi mengenai orientalisme itu menarik sekali. Kita masih punya cara pandang orientalisme yang begitu lama, tahun 70-an, padahal perkembangan kajian di Eropa itu sudah sangat pesat. Dan saya pikir ini sekali lagi seperti saya jelaskan perlu waktu khusus untuk menjelaskannya. Saya pikir itu Bapak Ibu sekalian, terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Senang sekali bisa berjumpa, bertatap muka dengan Bapak Ibu walaupun secara daring. Mudah-mudahan suatu saat saya bisa langsung ke Palangkaraya untuk bertemu Bapak Ibu semua, insya Allah. Terima kasih sekali lagi.
Thank you so much.
Insya Allah, Prof.
Okay, apparently we still have an enormous question or even topic to be discussed. However, due to the limited time, we need to end our discussion sessions. I would like to thankful to Prof. Riza. Thank you so much for joining us virtually today. And of course, for all the participants who have been listening from the beginning, please hold on. We still have another session, which is a parallel presentation, which we move to the primary room. This session will be facilitated by Dr. Antin Latifa, MAG, and Ahmad Kurniawan, MA. So thank you so much, Professor Riza.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bapak Ibu. Terima kasih. Terima kasih. Sampai bertemu lagi. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Antin Latifa, are you already here with us?
Maybe you call Bapak Iwan.
Okay,
Ahmad Kurniawan.
Bapak Ahmad Kurniawan, MA. So are you already with us here in the room?
Untuk roomnya di sini apa room 1, Bu?
Oke. Primary tetap.
Oh, tetap.
Dan yang lain silakan bergabung ke room yang sudah disediakan ya, sesuai dengan rundown. Room 1 untuk kelompok Bapak Muhammad Rifki, dan room 2 untuk kelompok Bapak Jeffrey, dan room 3 ke saya. Silakan.
Oke, terima kasih banyak. Oke, kita lanjut. Langsung akan saya mulai untuk para presentation primary room, kemana di sini nanti ada 8 pemateri. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, segala puji bagi Allah Subhanahu wa taala yang telah memberikan kesempatan untuk bisa berkumpul secara ilmiah. Alhamdulillah tadi di sesi pertama keynote speaker sudah banyak yang disampaikan terkait dengan materi di era digital dari perspektif hukum, syariah maupun ekonomi. Salam dan salam semoga senantiasa tercurah pada Nabi besar Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, seluruh keluarga, sahabat dan pengikutnya hingga yaumul kiamah. Nah, saya sebelumnya terima kasih banyak pada para komite yang sudah menunjuk menjadi moderator pada sesi para presentation, yang mana acara ini yang sudah dimulai dari pagi tadi tentang the International Conference on Law Syariah and Economic ICoLSE 2024 dengan tema Contribution of Law and Syariah Studies in Strengthening the Economy and Family di Digital Era. Oke, tadi sudah dijelaskan. Mohon maaf, saya hari ini lebih banyak menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Ya, perkenalkan, saya Rahmat Kurniawan selaku moderator yang akan membuka dan menutup sesi ini. Selanjutnya nanti ada moderator atau rekan saya yang terhormat dan terpelajar, Ibu Dr. Antin Latifah MAG. Sudah berhadir kayaknya Ibu ya? Oke, untuk moderator yang pertama yaitu Ibu Dr. Antin Latifah, beliau nanti yang untuk setelah presentation beliau yang akan menjalankan sesi diskusi yang mana beliau nanti akan berikan tanggapan, masukan dan juga sesi tanya jawab. Beliau adalah pimpinan redaksi editor in chief jurnal Al-Ahkam. Alhamdulillah jurnalnya sudah terindeks Scopus dari UIN Songo Semarang. Oke, pada sesi ini kita akan menyimak seperti yang saya jelaskan di awal tadi, ada 8 presenter yang sangat berkomponen di bidangnya dengan topik-topik yang relevan tentunya dengan topik pada hari ini berhubungan dengan digitalization, green economy, dan Islamic philanthropy. Oke, sebelum kita memulai, izinkan saya memperkenalkan beberapa presenter tadi ya. Ada 8. Yang pertama, yang terhormat dan terpelajar, Bapak Ibu, saudara-saudari, ada Ibu Syahrida dan Budi Suryadi, sudah hadir? Ibu Syahrida dan Budi Suryadi. Hadir? Beliau akan memaparkan tentang makna zakat perusahaan pada fikih kontemporer dalam kajian kitab Sabilal Muhtadin. Terus yang sambil menunggu ya, kita ke presenter kedua, ada Bapak Zulkifli Aminullah dan Bapak Ibnu Elmi Aspelu. Sudah berhadir?
Siap, hadir Bapak.
Alhamdulillah. Beliau akan menjelaskan tentang spektrum epistemologi wakaf uang, perspektif pemikiran maqasid syariah, Jasir Auda. Terus selanjutnya presenter ketiga yaitu Firqah An-Nazir, Ibu Firqah An-Nazir Mansurah Nurida Ibrahim. Hadir? Alhamdulillah. Beliau akan menjelaskan tentang Appellate in the Era of Social Commerce, a Comparative Review of Indonesian Law and Islamic Economic Law. Oke, selanjutnya ada Bapak Muhammad Syarif Hidayatullah. Oh ya, tadi ada informasi untuk presenter keempat ini nanti beliau tidak bisa berhadir, tapi nanti akan disampaikan ada video yang sudah beliau rekam. Nanti berarti geser untuk presenter 4 naik jadi Bapak Hanif Munadi. Hadir Bapak?
Ya, Pak.
Iya, Masya Allah. Ini adalah rekan saya dan juga sahabat saya. Oke, beliau akan menjelaskan tentang the interaction of the Quran with the principle of green economy, studi Muhammad Quraisy Shihab and Tafsir Al-Misbah on green economy. Pemikiran Bapak Quraisy Shihab ya terkait dengan green economy nanti. Terus selanjutnya, oh ya sedikit saya jelaskan nanti untuk presentasi ini sistemnya panel. Dan kebetulan nanti akan dibagi menjadi 2 sesi. Sesi pertama nanti dari nomor 1 sampai 4. Tadi mohon maaf Bapak Hanif Munadi karena Pak Sarip tidak bisa berhadir. Jadi Pak Hanif nanti langsung masuk ke panel yang pertama. Jadi untuk waktu itu nanti dipersilahkan maksimal 10 menit. 10 menit penyampaian artikel yang akan disampaikan. Nanti baru nanti akan diskusi dengan Ibu Dr. Antin Latifah, dia nanti akan berikan masukan kurang lebih selama 20 menit. Jadi total waktu untuk panel pertama itu selama 60 menit. Bisa dipahami Bapak Ibu? Oke, lanjut kita ke presenter selanjutnya. Di sini ada ini Mbak, saudara apa Ibu ini? Ada saudari Naupati Aupa, Muhammad Suwandi, Galih Mareta, Nur Ka'bah, dan Mawar Ardiansah. Hadir?
Ya, berhadir Bapak.
Alhamdulillah. Mereka akan menyampaikan tentang harmonisasi teori Al-Syaibani dan ekonomi berkelanjutan untuk mencapai target pembangunan Indonesia 2024. Terus presenter berikutnya ada saudara Muhammad Rani, Baharul Amik, Rahmat Pahreja Setiawan. Hadir?
Hadir Bapak.
Alhamdulillah. Menjelaskan tentang design work, comparison and collaboration of ILO and Islamic perspective. Dari apa namanya organisasi kerja ya ini ya. Oke, selanjutnya presenter terakhir, dan mohon maaf sampai sekarang saya belum menerima PPT-nya, nggak tahu hadir apa enggak ya. Mbak Ibu Ines Prasila Usmastuti dan Al Muazzami. Ada orangnya? Ya udah sambil tunggu aja ya, karena beliau juga presenter terakhir. Kalau tidak ada berarti untuk sesi panel kedua ini cuma 3 orang. Sama aturannya tadi 10 menit untuk presentasi maksimal, biar nanti ada sesi tanya jawab, masukan dan lain sebagainya dari moderator satu. Oke, selanjutnya nanti juga ada apa namanya, akan dipilih dari tiap-tiap room itu best presentation kalau tidak salah. Itu berdasarkan penilaian dari yang pertama materi, cara penyampaian, dan interaksi dengan audiens, terutama dari sisi waktu tadi juga ya. Oke, semoga presentasi dari presenter hari ini dapat memperkaya wawasan kita semua dan memberikan kontribusi signifikan bagi perkembangan hukum Islam syariah maupun ekonomi syariah, khususnya di era digital seperti sekarang ini. Sebelum kita memulai acara panel presentation pada hari ini, marilah kita mengucapkan basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya, mari kita mulai dengan presenter panel pertama. Dari presenter 1 sampai dengan, karena 4 tadi berhalangan hadir, langsung ke presenter 5. Waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan. Yang pertama, Ibu Sahrida dan Budi Suryadi. Tadi nggak jawab ya orangnya.
Hadir.
Oh iya, alhamdulillah. Ya siap. Langsung dari saya apa dari Ibu? Apa namanya?
Enggelon coba lah. Oke, saya coba dulu.